Hi everyone, Sean here from LINESINWAX. Been a while since I've done a retrospective video, so I want to get back at you today and do another retrospective video. This one is for the DSBM band Lifelover. Yeah, so these guys are really, not spoken about all that often, I don't think. At least I don't really ever seem to have conversations with people, even in the black metal worlds, where Lifelover comes up all that much. Now, the reason I want to talk about Lifelover is because while they might not be the greatest fucking band that ever walked the earth, they are, they were to me a band that kind of got me reinterested in black metal. After, I went for my teenage years and I've got into the second wave of black metal, I kind of lost interest after that point. It wasn't until the late 2000s when I heard Lifelover that, Lifelover doesn't sound like second wave black metal, right? So it really just gave me a new refreshing angle to which to enjoy the black metal sound and to give me a different frame of mind on these things. So when you think of DSBM, most people would immediately throw up bands like fucking Zaster and Leviathan, but Lifelover, I think, are definitely in there as one of the, maybe not the originators, because you could talk about Silencer and stuff as well, but maybe one of the bands that kind of pioneered that sound through the late 2000s and early 2010s, as it were. And yeah, so that's why I want to do this quick retrospective today. So who are or were Lifelover? They were a band formed in Sweden in 2005 by two people, Jonas Bergqvist. I can't say, this is going to be full of Swedish names I can't fucking pronounce. Anyway, his alias was quite handily just the letter B, amazing. So that I'm going to call him B from this point. And Kim Karlsson as well was the other guy. And his alias is bracket, open bracket, close bracket. So maybe I'll call Kim Karlsson Billy Bracket from this point onwards. So yeah, Lifelover was formed in 2005 by B and Billy Bracket. And they first released an album, or I guess it is an album because it's quite long, it's nearly an hour long. It doesn't really sound like anything that Lifelover would do going forward. So the first thing that they did was called Promo, or Promo 2005, depending on where you look. And it sounded a bit like this. And considering I want to talk to you about Lifelover, this is a bit of a non-starter, if I'm honest. The tracks, they take a very, very long time to get moving. And I know this is the point when it comes to, dark ambient or this kind of echoic, bizarre guitar music. But when things do get going, then, you're in for a treat if dark ambient is your thing. If not, maybe not so much. And I have a complaint here that I hear a lot of people saying in regards to the, Reformation era Swans, is that you have to wait too long for the good shit to happen. Now, if you're not a patient person, then the Lifelover Promo or Promo 2005 is not going to be for you. But if you like atmospheric music, that could potentially be the background to a horror movie or a game or something like that, then it's well worth checking this out. But really, as far as Lifelover goes and what I come to Lifelover for, this, as I said, is a non-starter. It's something I don't really include when I listen to Lifelover or when I think of their records chronologically or in a ranking in my head or whatever. This one doesn't ever really get included. I've only listened to it, I think, twice in my entire life. And the main reason for that is it sounds absolutely nothing like Lifelover. Let me tell you for why. Less than a year later, or maybe around a year later, in 2006, the band, or the duo of B and Billy Bracket over here, Mr. Kim Karlsson, they got two other vocalists or lyricists that being called LR and 1858, I want to say. Is that right? Is that his name? 1853, close enough. What a silly fucking alias to take for yourself. But what do I know? I'm not a super serious black metal guy, so I don't know shit. Anyway, this is what Pulver sounded like. What a change in direction. So from this ambient long form guitar music that was really, dark and, just ambient, I guess, Lifelover come back with this complete change of of their stripes or their spots or whatever, and they come back with Pulver as their proper debut on Go to War X. And I've always wondered how, speaking of Go to War X, I never really knew how to pronounce that until recently, and I was like, it's said out loud like going to war, Go to War X. I was like, Go to War X? What the fuck? Yeah, but I'm an idiot, like I said. Anyway, Pulver is outstanding. The first song I ever heard from Lifelover was the opening track to this album, Nackskott. I can't speak the language here. It translates to neck shot is the name of the first song, something like that anyway. And you get this like really like kind of drab sounding drum machine, and then these really tired kind of riff playing over the top. It's not even a riff, it's like a jangly kind of chord. I'm not a guitar player, as you can probably tell from the way I'm describing things. And it just sounds so tired and lacking energy, and the antithesis to the sarcastic, band name Lifelover. It sounds to me like the riff is it's on prescription painkillers or something. So it sounds really like drab and downbeat and depressing, and then over the top of that you get these absurd agonized vocals that are just peaking in their recording booth or whatever. It's just like screeching out these screams of like pure despair and agony over this really slow and like drab kind of like depressing music, and the mix of those two things, it just jumped out at me. It just jumped out of the stereo, and I was like, wow, this is something I've not quite heard before. Bear in mind, I hadn't really heard Zasta or anything like that at this point, but still, I still prefer Lifelover to Zasta. Now, Pulver kind of continues in this vein. I can say, I think, quite fairly that the band wasn't really as good as writing songs as they would go on to be. They really did perfect their sound. So things on Pulver are a bit disjointed. Things start and stop kind of abruptly, and, just transition kind of weirdly. But as a whole, this is a very, very, very unique record. And, as soon as you put it on, that's Pulver by Lifelover. It's really, really unique. And speaking about unique, look at that album cover. It's like, naked chick. She's got her boobs out and she's covered in blood, metal as fuck. But it doesn't really give me that vibe. It gives me a vibe of, fucking hell, what's going on? Yeah, this is interesting, because you've got this beauty of the lush green nature all around it, and then you've got this flesh, this dark kind of human flesh in really paleness to it, and then just covered in blood, this violent kind of undertone to this. Well, it's not an undertone, is it? It's quite in your face. There are various versions of this cover sleeve, and all of them are very striking. I even have one of them on a t-shirt, which I can't really wear in public, to be honest, but is what it is. I love this thing. It's so drab and unique and just weird, and if you've never heard it, then I implore you to listen to it. I really do. The band did, like I said, improve on their sound, and they streamlined it significantly. In the next year, in 2007, they released their second album entitled Erotik. Now, Erotik, right? Lifelover's initial follow-up to Pulver, it changed a few things. Some of the more downright disturbing and troubling elements of the music were replaced instead, I think, with more subtle, morose feelings. Likewise, the album's art is far more abstract than the starkness of its predecessor, with the girl and the nakedness and all of that. There are less intense outbursts as well here on the sofa, more effort. Instead, the album feels, to me, like more of a flowing whole. Like I said, I had that problem with the first album, where despite how much I love Pulver, a lot of the stuff sounded a bit disjointed. Not so much the case here. It seems to overcorrect itself, if anything, and the whole thing sounds like a flowing pool, with gentle piano medleys haunting the way over the top of the black metal, much like it did on Pulver, but here it feels much more subtle, and it really feels like it's making a different point and pushing home a different kind of feeling. Speaking of the black metal core of Lifelover, as it were, Lifelover's unique drab, I'm overusing that word, drab affair, so candidly displayed for us in the past, right, like on Pulver, is entered into a higher level of refinement on Erotik. The drum programming is not as obvious as it was on Pulver, and the general scope of the songs is far more impressive, in my opinion. The songwriting gels elements together far better than Pulver ever did. For example, going back to the haunting piano that I just mentioned that crops up every now and then over the top of everything, it almost feels like kind of like a disjointed leaf motif, more so in tone and setting than exact musical notes played. So excuse me if my terminology is off. I know it's not strictly a leaf motif. Not only does this piano recur, but it pulls the whole album together like stitches at the seam. And Erotik is best for that reason taken as a whole. It really does feel like a musical journey. It's a small price to pay in that some of the songs do kind of blur together, for me anyway. But as a whole, I don't think the album suffers for this. So really, all in all, to kind of recap, in 2007, this really quick follow-up to Pulver, it really streamlined the kind of sound that the band had on Pulver, and they made it into something far more refined on Erotik. Now, following Erotik, again, these guys were just on a streak, there was some sort of depressive wind at their backs, and in 2008 we got Konkurs. Now you have to forgive me because Konkurs may be the wrong way to pronounce this. Like I said, I'm not really up on ting with this language, as it were, but it looks like Konkurs on the page, so that's how I'm going to say it. So if I'm wrong, then please correct me, because everyone likes to make me feel like an idiot on the internet. That's how it works. Put me in my place for being wrong. Yeah, anyway, right? So Konkurs is where in 2008 I think Lifelover maybe lost a little bit of their momentum. This to me was a little bit of a missed step, considering all these albums came out so close together, but one a year so far. Lifelover tripped a little with Konkurs, in my opinion. I enjoy it more often than not, but there's something about Konkurs which kind of just feels like a swing and a miss, in my opinion. The damp, fucking miserable semi-acoustic DSBM sound that we, love from Lifelover is still here in some regard. They haven't quite got the full-on fuzzy band sound that they would have later either at this point. So it's kind of like a middle album in the kind of evolution of Lifelover. There's also kind of like a middle album in the sound and in the, the reception of it as well. It's not really that good. But the vocal deliveries here, whilst they've always been a bit fruity, dare I say, they're very unusual. There's always sorts of like screaming and shouting and, like I said, anguished and just despair. Some of the strangest vocals you can hear, really. Here they just maybe fall a little into the wrong side of irritating. They're a little bit, kind of just gets my back up a bit here. I don't know why on Konkurs, compared to the other stuff, but it just does. So what I can't argue with on Konkurs, however, is the fact that the band is still harrowing and unique, even when performing some of their less favourable material in my eyes. It's just, you can go earlier, like I've just covered, or later, as we will cover, into these guys' career and get better stuff from both ends. So that is my opinion on Konkurs. But if you're going to do all the Lifelover stuff, and you can, because there's not that much of it, then by all means check this out as well. It's just not my favourite thing, to be honest with you. In 2009 then, a year later, the band released Dekadens, which sounded a bit like this. Whether Dekadens is an EP or an album is kind of a moot point. I guess it's more of an EP because it's about 25 minutes long, thereabouts, but it's got 7 songs on it, and they feel like full fuck-off songs. And the reason I guess it feels like, more of a full band, it feels like a fuller release, right? It feels like a much fuller release because they had a new guitar player at this point, and I think at this point they even got a drummer as well. So they got a new guitar player that played along with B. And then you had a new bass player called Fix and a drummer that was just known as S. And these guys rounded out the full lineup, as it were. Now, of course, you've got Billy Brackett and B still in the band as well, the main duo, as it were. And you get that full fucking lineup, more or less. I'm not sure about the other vocalists that they had, LR and 18th Century, whatever the fuck. I'm not sure if they're still here on Dekadens. But Dekadens is probably my favourite stuff, to be honest. It depends on what day you ask me. Either Pulver or Dekadens will be my favourite Lifelover record. There is no time wasted on Dekadens. The running time is fairly short, like I said, about 25 minutes, but it's nothing but pure quality from start to finish. It's just non-stop bangers. Any fat has been trimmed, every track is a belter, and they all stand up as my favourites, I guess, from Lifelover. You know what I mean? The intro is not my favourite thing in the world, but you've got, like, track 2, MySpace, Major Fuck Off, Lethargy and Androida. Those 4 songs are just fucking outstanding. That is literally the ultimate distillation of fucking Lifelover's sound, like distilled into like 3 or 4 minute fucking, not pop songs obviously, but like, fuck man, the opening riff on Lethargy makes it like the smash hit for fucking DSBM, if there ever was one. You know, if I could say something as ridiculous as that. This is, for me, where to start with Lifelover. You either start with Pulver in the dirty, drab beginnings, or if you want something a little bit more digestible, still with that like depressive guitar tone, still with those anguished, fucking just terrified, painful vocals, but wrapped up in a like more presentable full band sound, then Dekadens is the one for you. This to me is one of my favourite black metal kind of releases, even though it's kind of just, you know, metal or you know, punk or rock or whatever all mixed together, but with black metal elements at this point. It is still, to me, one of the best, and I recommend this to everybody. I was talking to a friend a couple of years ago, and they were telling me about Woods of Ypres, or Woods of Ypres, or whatever, and in the conversation, I just said, "Have you heard Dekadens by Lifelover?" And you know, it's like kind of like morose guitar playing and blah blah blah, and they fucking hated it. But you know, I was like, okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm not comparing Woods of Ypres or Woods of Ypres to Lifelover, but I thought, you know, maybe there would be a connection there. But alas, I was wrong. I tried to get somebody into Lifelover, and I failed. But that's the way it goes. Anyway, Lifelover would do one more album. They would take a 2-year gap, which is the first time this has ever happened, because they just really fucking just didn't stop really pumping out the records. They took a 2-year gap, and they came back with, and this is I'm gonna fuck this up because, like I said, I can't speak this language. Sjukdom. Yep, that's right. In 2011, they dropped Sjukdom, and as much as I yearn for the raw beginnings of Lifelover's sound, I also love how it developed and matured over the band's later albums. Like I said about that full band sound really just being amazing, especially on Dekadens and Erotik. The anguish, again, just like Konkurs and Erotik, is more restrained on Sjukdom. How do you say this record name? As I said, the anguish is more restrained, and it's doled out across the tracks that almost sparkle with their own morose beauty. Love them. And I don't really rate it that high. This seems to be, if you take a look at like Rate Your Music or forums or Reddit or any of this stuff, Sjukdom, don't know how you say it. This album seems to be the worst received of the Lifelover albums. And I don't really see why. I mean, it's not infinitely worse than the others, but people just really don't seem to like this one at all, which is a shame. And that's doubly a shame because it was the last album they would ever do. For maybe 6 or so months after the release of this final album, the member B, the founding member, so Jonas Bergqvist, again, I apologise for butchering the surname pronunciation there, he died. So essentially, it was a bit of a back and forth online about how this happened, but long story short, in the end, it was kind of revealed or concluded that he had died of an accidental overdose of prescription drug medication. There was some talk about suicide in the mix back in the day. I remember this, but that does appear to have been ruled out with time, which is some comfort, I'm sure, but not much of a comfort to those who were near him. And of course, he's now gone. There was also some time when Lifelover were more or less deciding whether or not to continue without B. B was pretty much the main dude for Lifelover. So when he passed, whether or not they should continue, it wasn't really. I didn't think they should continue personally, but I'm not close to these guys. I don't know about it, and clearly, if they did continue, which they didn't, then I think they would have made the right decision for themselves. They played one more show, I think, maybe a couple of years later. This rings a bell, because I was supposed to be going to a festival, and I remember them being announced for another festival the same year. I want to say 2015, 2016, and they were going to play some festival. I can't remember, but then they ended up playing in fucking Canada or something, and I was like, well, I'm not going to Canada to see Lifelover. But yeah, long story short, they did play one more show without B, and then they called it a day, really. And that was it. And that was the end of Lifelover, of course, with B passing on. The band more or less came to a close as well. Much like Typo Negative, I guess, when Pete Steele passed on. I'm sure the other guys have gone on to other projects and other bands, and that's something I need to kind of chase down, but that's it, really. It's a brief one for Lifelover, but it's a band that, like I said, I don't see being covered all that often, so I wanted to do a quick retrospective on them and, highlight some of their albums and why I love them. So, question for you guys then, if anyone's listening, and girls, I'm not sure if there's many of you out there, and everyone in between, I love you all. Whoever's listening, do you like Lifelover? If you do or you don't, tell me why. Just leave a comment. You know the score. This is how YouTube works, right? Or, do you have some other black metal bands or really depressing music, actually, that is kind of similar in that regard to Lifelover? Like, if you have any kind of recommendations or anything to say in that regard, just drop me a message down below. It's been really cool doing another retrospective, even though this one's a bit quicker than the usual. I know some of them run like over an hour long, but the material just isn't there for Lifelover. They've got a few albums, and that keeps the video short-ish. So yeah, it's been fun going through this again with you. I'll be back in another video soon. Take care out there, and check out Lifelover if you've never heard them before. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers now.